What's up, Nate? How are you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Working the 75-day hard with you, my friend. Get through it. I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Uh, but yeah, man,
yeah,
I'm doing great.
it's
Yourself?
been pretty tough, dude. We're on day 8.
Day 8. Yeah. Yeah. So for all of you who don't know, last meeting, we were kind of discussing goals, and we both had similar goals in terms of weight and just wanting to restructure ourselves and what we were doing in our just lifestyle habits. And we discussed 75 hard, and we're like, you know what, let's just do it. And so now we're on day 8, kicking it off, and it's been good, real good. So
Yeah, it's been a little tiring, but
that's for
we're
sure.
getting there.
That's for sure. But hey, if one of us fails, we restart. So we're both
Yeah,
like keeping each other accountable, which is amazing.
for sure. Yeah, have an accountability partner, someone that pushes you. It'll go a long, long way. That is for
Absolutely.
sure. But that is not the topic of today's video. So, Drew, since you kind of have the biggest topic of today's video, why don't I start and then
Absolutely.
we'll leave you for the end.
For sure.
Um, so I'm going to go over the Tucson market very quickly. Um, so we are coming up at the end of May here. So, we'll have updated data for next week. Um, but we're seeing an interesting trend in regards to sales price for Tucson. So in March of 2023, we recorded at 330,000 was the average sales price. And then in April, it recorded at 329,000. So it actually went down $1,000. So, the reason for that, I believe, is just because of, where interest rates are at, as soon as interest rates move up, it kind of has a long-term effect. So the actual buyers and the data doesn't catch up for a couple months later, right? So we saw a little less buyer activity. Um, but now it'll be interesting to see where it goes because, again, real estate is a supply and demand issue. And in April of 2023, the new listings that came to market in Tucson was right around 13.7, so 13,700. In April, or excuse me, in March, it was 14,200. So we saw about a 500 amount of homes decrease when it came to new listings. So in regards to where we record for May, if we see more of a decrease, that means less supply, right, for the homes that are in the market in Tucson, which creates higher demand because there's nothing out there for people to buy. So therefore, theoretically, the price should then go back up, right? So Tucson, is so much bigger than some of the other markets we go over, Sahuarita, Vale, Marana, Oro Valley. So the metrics seem to be a little less drastic than those other markets because they're just so much smaller. They move a lot faster. So, anyways, it'll be interesting to see, but we are seeing a leveling of pricing kind of all around. So, most people thought pricing was going to just crash and tank, but it goes back to simple supply and demand. It just won't happen if the new listings aren't there. So, that's my market update for Tucson. Biggest takeaway is that again, we kind of say it time and time again, just consult with someone who's doing this every single day. I think we often typically use people that maybe we, were referred or maybe we like, or they're in our family, or we just know them because they're a friend of a friend. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're making a business decision. So use someone you feel comfortable with who is professional, who knows their stuff, and who is in a market and a professional in that market that you want to be in. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be using, a financial advisor that doesn't have any idea what they're talking about, right? So I'm going to use someone that makes me money, that handles my money well, and someone that I can trust to make that happen. And it's just business, right? At the end of the day. So for anyone watching, make sure you're using people, whether it's a lawyer, a CPA, a realtor, a financial advisor. Make sure you're using these people to your advantage. That's what they're there for. And if they can't offer that, then it might be, a red flag to look at some other options.
I love that. I love that. Now, one question for you on the actual housing prices and everything, because you said it was reporting to May. So is when it says listings on market, does that include pending and active contingent, or is that just strictly listings available?
That's a good question. I believe it's just listings available.
Okay.
Because we have a separate section here for pending and closed. So from what I understand, and the pending amount is different than the new listing amount, right? So pending amount for April was 10,400, whereas in new listings was 13,726. So it may include, because I just know the Tucson market, I know for a fact there's not 13,000 homes active for sale, right? So it actually may include the pending sales, and they just, offer two metrics here. Because in that case, if it was pending, right, then that would mean there's only like 3,000 homes for sale, or,
Actually,
active contingent or whatever. So that's probably more accurate data. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it does include pending and active contingent, because then that would explain, there's not, I know for a fact there's not 13,000 homes for sale, right? Um,
absolutely.
Otherwise we'd be in a whole different market. So yeah, good point. Good point. All
Perfect.
right,
No, but I
Drew,
mean,
go
that,
ahead.
that kind of just, hits on the fact that we are hitting a hot season, like if we went from 14,000 to 13,000, we're hitting that after school. So, supply and demand are going to be limited. So we might even see, if not a level, we might even see even a slight increase in housing prices. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I absolutely think we will. And we're already seeing that here in the smaller markets, right? Like Vale, Sahuarita, Marana, Oro Valley. We're seeing that happen in those markets. Tucson's a much bigger market, right? So it's going to take a lot more of that to actually see it move on the chart. Whereas in these markets, I could tell you, because I work in them more so, I could tell you for a fact that's what we're seeing, right? So for sure. I mean, I don't see it going down unless they can build, freaking 10,000 homes in the next couple months, which they won't and they can't. It just won't happen. So,
Absolutely. Sweet. Well, then I will jump in. Thank you so much for that. I'll jump into what I got here. So S&P, my three indexes that I tend to follow, S&P 500 up 0.68 last week and up about 9.97, so almost 10% year to date for the S&P. So great year return so far. Russell 2000 down about 1.43% last week, but still up about 1% year to date. And the Dow Jones was down 0.58 last week and down 0.42 on the year. So again, we're seeing that kind of flat line for those two indexes, Russell 2000 and Dow Jones. Those are the opposite, the extremes, right? Russell's super aggressive, super small micro cap companies, and the Dow Jones are the 30 largest companies in terms of market cap and on, pull on the actual stock market. So with those two, you have the little bit of movements, it's kind of like Tucson, right? And then with the S&P, those are the mediocre, those are the ones that tend to move and have the most growth. That's why you've seen a 10% return there. So makes sense. And with all the uncertainty that exists in the market today, it's really hard to make justifications. And that's why, those riskier buyers are going to buy riskier. They have a little bit more of a fluctuation, tend to show higher fall downward, higher up upward. And then the Dow Jones, again, people are usually buying these that are a little bit older, more of an asset preservation mode. They don't want to lose money, so they're going to buy those safe, strong companies. They don't tend to move very much as well. So that's why. But kind of jumping and following line in terms of that uncertainty in the market, we have an update for the debt ceiling and legislation and all of that piece. So lots of coverage, lots of different things. Now there are a couple things that I want to hit on specifically when it comes to this. So it's the Republican majority leader McCarthy with Joe Biden. The two of them met and they sent all senators home because they thought it was going to take a long time to be able to come up to somewhat of a deal. That didn't actually happen. It actually came to a consensus pretty quickly between the two administrations and the two parties. And so now they're going to vote. Now, this is cool because, it seems to be pretty bipartisan in nature, lots pretty sitting on the middle line. However, there are a few areas that, IRS limits. There's a few areas specifically, and I would definitely do some research as to where there's going to be budget cuts And that there's a lot of people on either side, more of the extreme on either side, that tend to say, no, I don't want budget cuts there. I'm not willing to sign this bill. Now, here's the problem with that. Because they expected it to take so long, they sent all the senators home to go live with their family, stay in their jurisdiction, do more of their specific, work. And that tends to happen. Usually I forget what it's called, but they go on like a leave and then they all come back and then it's called something else, and they vote on bills to pass, and then they go back and then they come back. Well, they're not actually going to come back until the debt ceiling is hit or projected to be hit, which is June 1st, which is like in a couple of days. And so, there's some fear that they might not actually hit, be able to get that signed. So what they're doing is they're going to be putting out ballots via like Zoom. And so they're going to do it on, online and do virtual ballots. Here's the problem with that. And Cade, I'm going to ask you this. Are you familiar with the Asch line test?
No.
Okay, so in psychology, they did this test where they had 5 actors sit in a room, and they had one person who wasn't in on it. They put them in a room, and then they had someone go up in the front and draw 4 lines, and each line was different in length. And then they had them say which was the longest line. And all of the actors picked a line that was clearly not the longest line. And the intent of that study was to see, if you're in a room with individuals, will your decision be swayed based upon the decision and choice of the other individuals in the room? And some super high percentage of people said, they went along with what the group consensus was rather than knowing what they knew was right. And they also put them in their own individual room and said which line is longer, and they got them right 100% of the time. So it was clear and evident to them that they knew what they were talking about, but they were really swayed by the group consensus. And so they just kind of went along rather than standing out. So why I bring this up is, and most times in political, law signings, you kind of have that weird piece, even though you're not supposed to, of lobbyists and other fellow friends that are voting. They might vote a specific way that might pass a bill, especially if if there's, I forget exactly, but if you need 282 votes and you're the 281st person to go, and your vote means everything, like could pass the bill, could not, you might lean a certain way, knowing that these virtual ballots don't have access to all of that. And so it's leading Congress to believe that there might not be a decision made in a, good enough amount of time. And so it's a little scary, a little fearsome for those around. And so my idea is just, and you're going to see the media saying, if they don't pass a bill, we're going to hit a recession, blah, blah, blah. And like we've said the last time, we've seen so many times where they've upped the debt ceiling, or they've restructured, that sort of side of Congress, the budget. And so it's not something to stress about. The world isn't going to collapse because we go into default for a few days or a few weeks. Like, yeah, there might be some pain and some hardship, and maybe some government employees go furlough, right? And if you don't know what furlough means, it just basically means you're on administrative leave and you're not getting paid. And they might do that to, because they can't pay anybody. Government employees might do that. Who knows? But our government can't survive without those employees. And so, they might be furloughed for a few days or a few weeks, but long term, they're going to figure it out and it's going to be fine. And we're not going to see a massive recession. So that's sort of my update. I would definitely do your own research. Don't trust everything that everyone says, like definitely do your own research. But from the research that I've done, that's sort of my takeaways from it.
Dang, that test, I just kind of want to ask about that test.
Yeah.
That test is so interesting.
So interesting.
Do you know when they did that? Like,
Oh, it was a long time ago. Like I think if I had to take a stab, it was like early 1900s. So
wow. But I
long,
mean, it's still true to this day, bro.
absolutely.
Still true. Because you don't want to like hurt feelings, so you'd rather
Yeah.
just, vote and, forget about it and not burn a bridge than confront
Yeah,
any.
exactly. And it's that whole concept of herd mentality, right? Like that's why there are very few lions and a lot of gazelles, because people just tend to run with the pack and they do what others are doing because they don't want to stand out. They don't want the spotlight. They want to just fit in. And that's why those true power leaders and those true people who actually make impacts in this world are the lions, or the people that stand out. They're the ones leading the herd. and it's because they're the decision makers, and most people just aren't that way. They don't have those leader qualities, or they don't tend to speak up for themselves. They tend to try to blend in. And
Yeah.
the Asch test, Asch, I think it's the Asch line test, just 1000% proved that. Crazy.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is crazy. I'm gonna look that up real quick and see. Ash line test.
Yeah.
Let's
Tell
see.
me what year it was.
Yeah, let's figure this out here. A series of studies. Um, 1951.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Go off. But yeah, it's crazy. Crazy. A very interesting study. It would be some, and most people, you should look it up and do some research because it's fun. It's kind of a fun, unique study. I mean, I gave you a preface of it, so you kind of know, but if you're
No,
ready
that
to
is
dive
sick.
into it, so,
That's funny, bro. Well, dude, do you have a quote to kind of send us off?
yeah. So this is kind of a weird quote and more of a story. But I was listening to a book during 75 Day Hard. I was listening to an ebook called The E-Myth. And this guy with the author was talking about, different businesses and how, you can hit your sort of max in terms of your constraints in terms of time and your availability to be in multiple different places. And it just threw me back in. So I watched The Founder again because they discussed McDonald's, and they were talking specifically about how the McDonald's, and this is going to sound like I forget what it's called, but, and you, like when you say two opposite meanings, but that makes sense. So it's the largest small business ever, because like their operations on a small business, right? You know what you're going to get every time you go to McDonald's. The service, it's quick, it's fast, and that's what made that franchise model so successful. And I guess the idea is like, make yourself and your business the biggest small business that you can, because you're not going to, you never want to let up on the service. You want to make sure that everyone has that same white glove experience, that they all feel very special and cared for. But you also want to make it as big as possible because you would like to make money. So it's a give and take, right? But don't ever forfeit that white glove service to make more money, because it will definitely, you'll get outbeat, you'll get outpaced, and eventually your service will become abysmal and people will leave and you'll stop making money. So the best way to keep up with that is keeping up with your service. Yes,
Dude, that's baller. I
yeah,
love that, dude. And that's actually, you know what? That's the power of creating systems in a business and
absolutely.
having processes. Because if you don't have systems or processes, you can't hire anyone because
Exactly.
they don't know what to do. Right. So I just last week started, and this is his first week. I hired a full-time VA. And yeah, dude, he's making all of my cold calls for me. So, I mean, 8 hours a day, he's just calling owners, right? It's like picking up the phones. And so already he's only worked maybe 1 to 2 full days, and I've already gotten 2 leads that I can like begin servicing and start working. And it's like and long story short, I found someone who I wanted to replicate. I bought his course and then I learned it like within a week, and then I started implementing it right away. But already, I mean, it was so simple, and already I bought 6 hours of my day back, just with
Great.
that one move, just educating myself, implementing and creating a system that's already been made, right? It was already made. I just had to, mimic it to my features. And
Absolutely.
he's already working for me, right?
Amazing.
And so, yeah, it's super powerful to think like you're never too small. I feel like to think big, right? But that quote of, think of your business as what was it, like a large small business?
You want to be the largest small
Small
business.
business. Yeah, that is freaking awesome. And that starts with creating systems and processes. So if you guys, and this will probably be the biggest tip of the day, I think, if you guys do not have systems and processes for your business, what you're doing on a daily basis, you need to get that locked in, because this is even something Kay and Andreas spoke about at our last meetup, is that they have a system and process for everything, right? And so they know every day what they need to do. It's not a question of, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Once you've actually made metrics for your business and you've made systems and processes, you know what to expect, right? So for this VA, I know that, hey, get one lead per day. That's all I ask of you. Get one lead per day. And I know that will turn into, 12 listings a year or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on your business, but you need to have those metrics and goals because then you can start hiring it out and systemizing and processing it. And that's how you go big. And that's something Kay's done extremely well at.
That's it.
So
That's it.
thank you for sharing, Drew. I appreciate you, brother. Do you
Of
want to
course.
give them an update on our next meetup?
Yes. So typically our meetups are on the 30th or the last Friday of the month, and this would be the 30th for this month. Now, the sad thing is both Kate and I are out of town that day. So we might break the mold and try to switch it for this month to the 23rd. If that's the case, we'll let you know. We're going to be sending out a mass text blast to everybody, letting them know, hey, it's going to be a date change. However, if we can't change the date, we will still have the 30th be there, and we will select an individual to run the meeting. And that individual, whether we have him get an introduction here on this Zoom call the week before, so that way you get a familiar face, or however we decide to do that, we send a picture with the text blast, however, so kind of who's running and who's in charge. We'll make sure that it's all taken care of, so it seems like just a seamless meeting as usual. But we are going to try to change the dates. So, yeah,
So stay posted, y'all.
Stay posted. That's it.
Awesome.
All right, Cade. Well, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Likewise, brother. See you soon.
See you soon.